2001: A Space Odyssey was made in 1968 and directed by Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick decided to start making films when he was 21 and never went to school for it. His first film was called Day of Flight, which was a short, and his first feature film was called Film and Desire. 2001: A Space Odyssey is a science fiction film that was made during the time of the issues between the US and the USSR. It is a unique film that is not like any film that was made during that time. The film's main purpose is up for audience interpretation. It is a series of images and shots with music, and there is less than 40 minutes of actual dialogue in this film. It was based on the short story in 1948, The Centennial, written by Arthur C. Clarke, and also influenced by Conquest of Space in 1955. When it first came out, however, people were not used to this type of film and thought it was boring and did not get to the point. When it came back out in 1972, it was a slightly shorter version and was better liked. It ended up winning an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Kubrick responded to the film in an interview comparing 2001: A Space Odyssey to Dr. Strangelove. He was quoted saying, "2001, on the other hand, is basically a visual, nonverbal experience. It avoids intellectual verbalization and reaches the viewer's subconscious in a way that is essentially poetic and philosophic. The film thus becomes a subjective experience which hits the viewer at an inner level of consciousness, just as music does or a painting." The film was supposed to be an interpretation, and he didn't want to give it away. That's why the monolith seems to appear out of nowhere. He doesn't want to give the satisfaction that a group of aliens seem to drop it off. Another film that relates to this movie is the Qatsi trilogy, directed by Godfrey Reggio. One of the films, Koyaanisqatsi, focuses on the music and shots in the films and leaves the actual purpose of the film to the audience. Although 2001 has more dialogue, they are similar in their use of music and interpretation effect for the audience. They are both a unique film for their time. In 2001, a major thing that affects how we look at and interpret the film is the editing. Editing is defined as the basic creative force of filmmaking is the process of selecting, arranging, and assembling the essential components of a movie. There are two main categories of editing: continuity and discontinuity. Continuity is the most common editing used in modern-day films because it focuses on smooth transitions and wants the film to look cohesive and sleek. Discontinuity is breaking the smoothness by allowing the filmmaker to make abrupt changes, almost interruptions, between shots. One example of continuity is the master scene, which is usually the scene photographed with many shots running from general to specific. Usually establishes a location. An example of this is the opening shot where the apes are all in a group. This is the first time you see the area where the film is going to take place, and you see the environment surrounding it. Probably the most famous cut in the film is what is called the match cut. This is when two shots are matched in subject, graphic, or two characters. The best example of this is when the ape is throwing the bone in the air, and it's circular and then transfers to the nuclear base circling in space. This is a connection between the beginning of humans and the apes. Another connection that makes the film flow is the scenes when the head ape reaches one hand out to touch the monolith, and the other apes come together to touch it. When they do, the sun rises and it doesn't show them again, as if they're disappearing. Again, when the men go to see the moon and find the monolith, one goes out to touch it and places his hand on it, and the others come in to see it as well. It ends once again with the sun rising in the closing shot. These two parallel scenes help connect the apes and the humans once again, and also helping the continuity of the film. "2001: A Space Odyssey" was a unique film for its time. With the certain editing styles, it helps to preserve the continuity of the film and also help to engage the audience and get the interpretation across.